everyone, my name is Anitra of AnitraSpeaks.com. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And this is going to be the start of something different, a little bit different of how I do what I like to call my daily videos, if you will. I'm moving over to my YouTube channel now, so go and find me on YouTube at Anitra Speaks. I'm also available on, Facebook and Twitter at Anitra Speaks as well. I haven't branched off into Instagram yet or Snapchat. Kind of Snapchat a little bit, I'm playing with it. But those are the ones that I'm definitely on where you can follow me and find me. Today I wanted to do a little something different because as I'm growing, I also like to share with you what I'm learning so that you can also grow. Now, I am not just sharing this with you so that you can have this information and then you can grow. I want you to then go and share with others as you go along about your day. I'm not telling you to do a video or anything like that unless you'd like to, but I am saying that it is our responsibility to share and help others grow as we grow. So that being said, what I'm studying right now is this book by John Maxwell, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And the reason that I think this book is so important is because I don't know about you guys, but in my life, I have felt that if I was achieving goals, I was growing. But that's not true. You can set and achieve goals, but that doesn't mean that you're growing. And the first law is what I want to talk about today. And well, let me back up and let me say this. Years ago, Facebook updated their relationship statuses. You could change your relationship status. You could be single, married, divorced, separated, widowed, and all of those are the norm. But for fun, I believe Facebook added a status in there where you could say it's complicated. And the first time I saw that, it said, you know, relationship status, it's complicated. I literally laughed out loud because what does that really mean? It's complicated. Either you're single, you're separated, you're married, you're divorced, you're widowed. You're one of those things, but what could it's complicated mean in terms of your relationship status? Well, thinking about that in terms of leadership, it's complicated, or it could appear to be complicated. Growth can seem complicated. Learning something new, complicated. Transitioning from one place to another, complicated. Maybe or maybe not. Maybe it appears to be complicated. And what I have found, and what I found when I'm studying this book, in the first law in this book is the law of intentionality, right? So being intentional about growth. Well, they list, or John Maxwell lists in this book, 8 gaps. And these gaps are sometimes what people refer to as being complicated as you attempt to grow. So what I want to do today is share with you, and we're going to walk through these 8 gaps. We're not going to cover them in great detail, but I do want to touch on these 8 gaps that people sometimes label as being complicated when you try to grow yourself or when you try to move from one place to another in your life. And these are both professional and personal gaps that can be in your life that lead you to say it's complicated. So let's get started. So the first gap in this book that's talked about in the first law is the assumption gap. Well, what is the assumption gap? The assumption gap means that I assume I already know. I assume I will automatically grow. You don't automatically grow. Growth is intentional. Oh, and one thing I forgot to say in this, you may want to get yourself a notepad and a pen so that you can take notes on this and, you know, study this. And you probably want to go ahead and buy this book and read this book. And if you need help with that, just reach out to me and I will help you get yourself a copy of this book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. Okay, back to the assumption gap. In the assumption gap, you have to know that you don't get better by just being somewhere. You will not get better until you become intentional about your growth. Don't assume that you're growing just because you're somewhere. Don't assume you're growing just because you're in a position. Don't assume you're growing just because you go to the library. If you go to the library but you don't read a book, or you don't take a book with you, you're not learning anything and you're not growing, okay? The second gap is the knowledge gap. In this gap, we have to understand sometimes we don't know how to grow. Last year in 2015, something that I had been thinking about for a long time actually came to fruition, in that I opted to leave corporate America. When I opted to leave corporate America, I thought I knew. For 4 years, I had run a very, very part-time business. Not necessarily successfully, because I wasn't trying to grow it successfully. It just kind of happened, and I was doing it. So I assumed that I already had knowledge on how to run a business, and I stepped out there. Let me tell you what I found out when I stepped out there. I found out all the things that I did not know. But one of the things that I did find out was that the information is out there if you go and look for it. I began to go to small business administration classes. I would ask people to help me. I would read up on things. And there was a process there of getting that knowledge, but that knowledge is available. But the gap, so what I wrote down was, one of the things is, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? Have you sat down and actually written out your plan for growth? There is such a thing. In this book, John talks about how many, many years ago, someone asked him, do you have a growth plan? And then they had the toolkit that he could write a growth plan out. And he didn't want, at the time, he couldn't afford the toolkit. So he started asking other people, do you have a growth plan? Do you have a growth plan? Do you have a growth plan? No one had a growth plan. So he ended up buying this guy's. He sacrificed and saved and did without so that he could buy this toolkit from this person. And his life was forever changed because he did that. Last year, when I was making the decision to actually go forth with my John Maxwell certification, it was, in my opinion, expensive. And I felt like, do I even need it? I already have degrees, I already worked in corporate America. Do I really need to invest in this? Well, I am so happy to tell you that somehow I figured out how to make that investment, and I am so much better served for it because they gave me a plan. They gave me a way to show me and help me how to grow in the areas where I had the knowledge gap. So now the third gap is the timing gap. Boy, let me tell you, this is one that many of us struggle with, because when should I begin? When is the right time to get started? There is a riddle in this book that John talks about that his father used to always ask them. He said, if 5 frogs are sitting on a log and 4 frogs decide to jump off the log, how many frogs are left on the log? I'll give you time to think about it. Let me ask you the question again, as is stated in this book. If 5 frogs are sitting on a log and 4 of those frogs decide to jump off of the log, how many frogs are left? Well, without even a doubt, 5 minus 4 is 1. I automatically said 1. I kept reading. He automatically said 1. But his daddy said, no, the answer is 5. I said, 5? That doesn't even make sense. Well, he said the answer is 5 because 4 decided to jump, but they did not actually jump. See, there is a clear difference in deciding to do something and actually doing it. 4 frogs decided, but 4 frogs did not jump, and therefore there's still 5 frogs sitting on the log. Now I ask you, to me, the log is indecision. Sometimes we sit on a place, we decide to do something, but we don't actually do it. So we're on that place of real indecision. And as I heard someone say recently, indecision is still a decision. So the timing, deciding when. I didn't know when to get started, or I didn't know if I could get started. Well, guess what? Now is the time for you to start growing. You have to start now. You have to make a conscious decision, a conscious effort to decide now to grow. So let's keep going. The fourth gap is the mistake gap. How many of us hate making mistakes? We absolutely hate making mistakes. We feel embarrassed. We feel like, what was the use of even doing that if all I was ever going to do was make a mistake anyway? So because the mistake gap is there, we feel like it's too complicated for us to get started. It's too complicated for us to grow because we might make a mistake. Okay, the fear of mistakes, and really a mistake is really a learning opportunity. If you don't make mistakes, how do you grow? For those of you who don't know me, I have a son who loves basketball. He plays basketball. Well, he used to play football, he was really good at football. When he moved over to basketball, he had a lot to learn, and he's still learning. And as he moves from position to position, one of the things that two of his coaches have advised him is, you need to learn how to better handle the ball. Okay, so what that's talking about is dribbling. Dribbling the ball and being able to control the dribble, being able to not allow someone to come and take the ball from you because you have control of the dribble. Now, he says he wants to wait until he gets good at it. But he can't get good at it until he starts to actually dribble the ball, until he can understand the feel and the movement of the ball and how the ball bounces and how does it work with his left hand versus his right hand. What happens when somebody comes up on you? You can't learn until you actually start doing. The mistake gap makes you be afraid of even starting because you feel like you're going to make a mistake. But that's the only way you're going to learn is through your mistakes. So let's get going now. Start being intentional about your growth. You're going to make mistakes, but you will learn from them. Oh, and this is my one right here. I have to tell you. Number 5 is the one that I have struggled with probably all of my life, and that is the perfection gap. I want to wait until I'm absolutely certain that I can do it and I can be perfect in doing it. Guess what? You will never start anything in life if you're waiting until you're perfect, or you're waiting until the situation is perfect. If you're waiting until the time is perfect, if you're waiting for things to be perfect, you will never ever get going. Again, the time to start is now. So this is what I wrote down. I wrote, you have to get started in order to find the best way. You have to get on your way before you can see your way. You know, we want to see the end picture. We want to know that it's going to be perfect. We want to know that it's going to work out before we even get started. No. It's going to work out as you continue to try, as you continue to grow, as you continue to learn. You know, you learn by doing a lot of times. You learn by reading a lot of times. You learn by being in conversation with others, being around others that are also growing. Then you grow as well. But you don't grow if you wait until it's perfect. It's a perfect time. You can't grow. So don't let the perfection gap hold you back from moving forward. Now, here's another one that recently is probably one that I felt like was complicated for me, and that is the inspiration gap. You know, sometimes you just don't feel like doing it. Sometimes you don't feel like going forward. Sometimes you don't feel like doing the thing that you're called to do, so you do nothing. Well, that's not right. And in the book, it talks about motivation. A lot of times we want to get motivated to start, but motivation does not really get you started. Once you get started, then you get motivated to keep going. Motivation doesn't get you going. Motivation is what keeps you going. Decision is what gets you going. You decide and then you start acting upon that decision. Then as you're going, you get motivated and you keep going. And I can say that for myself. Lately, I have not at all been inspired to work out, and I need to get going and work out. So I've made a decision that I have to go ahead and get started. Now, I'm just like those 5 frogs sitting on the log with that decision. That decision is there, but it's time for me now to put some action with that decision in order to get going and then grow. And I want to grow inward when I started working out. I want to grow inward. I want to see physical changes in my body, which I've seen before and which I know it's possible, but I just need to get going. So the inspiration gap. The next one, and the next to the last one, is the comparison gap. Comparing yourself to others, saying others are better than I am in this area. There's no need for me to do this because somebody else has already done it, or this person is better than me and this person is not as good. Recently, I was invited to come and speak, or to go and speak rather, to a group in Dallas named the Dallas Dietetic Alliance. So when I got the invitation, and the invitation came through someone I knew in Toastmasters, so thank you, Miss Yolanda, for the invitation. I got the invitation and I looked up I accepted it right away because I was so excited that someone wanted me to come and speak. So yes, I acted on it. I didn't worry about being perfect. I didn't worry about the timing. I didn't worry about anything. They called me on a Thursday, want to know, can you speak on Tuesday? I said, yes, I can do it. Then I went to their website. And I realized this is a group of dietitians. I became intimidated right away. What could I possibly tell them? What are they going to think when they see me? Will they even listen to me once they see me? Was what I thought to myself. Then I wanted to know, can I really add any value to them? Because they're the dietitians. They give people nutrition information on how to eat healthy, how to overcome sicknesses through your diet, how to lose weight through your diet. What could I possibly tell them? So it became so complicated for me in my mind, because then not only did I look at their website, I then went and looked at past speakers. There were doctors, people in the medical profession who'd spoken to them in the past, and I said to myself, what could I possibly share with them? What could I tell them? I began to compare myself. I began to question myself. And I almost called them back and said, I don't want to do it. I don't think I'm a good fit for it. But I decided to not listen to the fears in my head, decided not to worry about any mistakes that I would make, and I decided to go for it. I put together my presentation. I talked about my own struggles with losing weight, the fact that I had been a recipient or a person who'd had lap band surgery in the past, what that experience was like, how the doctor who who performed my surgery, how we connected, how the dietitians that I worked with in the past, how we connected, and it went over so well. And later on, I began to think about, what if I'd let the fear of making a mistake, the timing, the fact that I was comparing myself to others, make me decide not to go forth. Out of that one conversation, or that one presentation rather, I've now been invited back to speak at their fall conference next year. They already had the fall conference this year. It was already behind them, but they want me to come and speak back. Another lady wants me to come and speak to her group. I have these now pending invitations that are coming up because I decided to stop comparing myself to others. So that comparison gap, that 7th gap, comparison, can really, really hold you back and keep you from moving forward. You've got to learn to be comfortable outside of your comfort zone. That's how you grow, and that's how you can share that with other people. This is how you grow. Get outside your comfort zone. Oh my gosh, this video right here, this is so outside my comfort zone. The first time I did a video, a lot of people had comments on it because it was upside down. It had no sound. Then it was sideways. Then it was backwards. And, all these things that I did when I was learning how to use my selfie stick. Now here I am with another type of video camera in a different setting. And all of this I'm learning as I'm growing and I'm doing things. And so now, I've had to stop comparing myself to others because I don't have a professional. If anyone knows how to update videos because I'm really struggling in that area, feel free to contact me. That's just a side note. Okay, now let's carry on. Finally, the last and final gap is the expectation gap. And this one can be huge because sometimes we get into things and we expect it to be a lot easier than it actually is. And because it's harder, or it looks harder, or maybe you don't have all the answers, you'll say, oh my gosh, I didn't think this was going to be this hard, and then you stop and you put it off because the expectation gap makes you feel that you can't actually achieve it because the expectation of what you're expecting, it's different, you know. But I tell you what, sometimes if you just relax and say, okay, no, this is not what I expected it to be, but let me just relax and let me just look at it and let me start to figure out how to do this. You know, when I was on my 90-day transformation call, the one thing that the lady always said was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So sometimes just taking a step back and figuring out what the phases are, what the steps are. Let's just start. I know this is the big picture, but let me start over here with step 1. Let me achieve step 1 first, and then let me move on to step 2. And then you can look back in 6 months or 12 months and say, oh my gosh, look at where I was and look at where I am now. You know, so overcoming those gaps. So as a review, let me go through the gaps again and just tell you at a high level what they are, and you can pick out which one is you and where you are and how to move forward. So one is the assumption gap. The next one was the knowledge gap. Then you have the timing gap, the mistake gap, the perfection gap. And the last 3 are the inspiration gap, the comparison gap, and the expectation gap. All of those gaps are, they can come into you, or you can be at that place where you're experiencing that gap, and you can think to yourself, man, this is too complicated for me. I'm just going to go ahead and bail. You know, I don't want to do it. I don't want to move forward. But if you stay the course, if you begin to work and work on how to grow yourself, start with the plan of growth, start on how you're going to attack it. You know, here's the big picture of where I want to go, or here's the big picture of where I want to grow, and now what are the steps to get me there? Who can help me get to what I want? Recently, I wanted to do something. I'm over the young people at church, and I wanted to do something with the young people. And it was a desire that I had, but I didn't speak it to anyone. And I said, well, you know, probably won't happen. Well, someone called me and asked me about something very different, and I shared with her. I said, you know, this is what I really want to do, but I didn't know how to start. And she said, you know what? All you need to do is ask someone. Now I can help you get started with that. I'm willing to give. I'm willing to share. I'm willing to put you in touch with people. So sometimes, you know, it's very true. You have not because you ask not. You grow not because you seek not. Okay? So we have to be intentional about growth. Thank you for listening today to the It's Complicated tape, if you will, video, if you will. Again, my name is Anitra of AnitraSpeaks.com. Follow me on Facebook. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, look me up on YouTube. It's all under Anitra Speaks. I hope that this video added some value to you. My next video will be It's Complicated Part 2. And in Part 2, I want to talk a little bit more. I want to give you 4 distinct ways to move from thinking about growing to actually growing. And that will be my next video. 4 ways to stop thinking about growing and to actually begin growing. Thank you again for sharing with me. Anitra of AnitraSpeaks.com. More to come. And again, if anyone knows anything about helping me with these videos, feel free to call me. Thank you guys for watching. Have an awesome and fantastic day. Bye.